Welcome back to the Trotter Chatter podcast, and we are joined here today by Lee from the Brunton Bugle. How you doing, pal? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me on, Ryan, once again. I think we spoke early in the season, didn't we? I think we were just saying that before.
We certainly did. Yeah, it's. I think you're your first person to make a second appearance, so that's always good. Yeah. So Brunton Bugle is basically our equivalent, the Carlisle equivalent to Trotter Chatter. Um, so then, where did the pod come from? Do you want to give yourselves a bit of an introduction before we get going?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. So basically, I used to work in the media team at Carlisle United about 14 years ago. So sort of it's a bit of a busman's holiday in that sense. But we tried to start one up in about 2017. It was recording on match days at the game, and it just didn't really work. It was just too much hassle to put together. And then obviously all the lockdowns happened during COVID. And me and a couple of mates were like, well, not got much to do. There's not really football happening. Why don't we just do like one where we just talk generally about the club and stuff like that? So we did. And what 4 years later now, about nearly 200 episodes in, I think, something like that. Get about 50 a season, and get some really good coverage. We're quite lucky. We had a fairly decent relationship with the club as well. So we've had a few interviews and things like that. And some of the local media, we go on and do some of their podcasts with them as well. So yeah, it's great fun. We try and put one out one a week at least. But yeah, it's all good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. It's we've got some catching up to do. I think we're not quite on triple figures yet, but yeah, good to know. So obviously, Carlisle United back in League One. Obviously, you're sort of in an uncomfortable position at the moment at 23rd. What's it like being a Carlisle fan at the moment?
It's going to sound weird, but actually not that bad, to be honest, because you'll have probably seen that we've been taken over. Obviously, that happened after we played you guys back in October last year. There was already a bit of a buzz then because they'd had a meeting with the fans to ratify the Supporters Trust reducing their shareholding so they could take over and a few of a little bits, and there was a bit of information sort of coming out from them about what their plans were, and it was completed in mid-November. The first game was against Charlton after it, which we got a 1-1 draw from, and the atmosphere was brilliant that day, and fair play, they've been true to the word in terms of what they're putting into the club. So yeah, on the pitch, it's not that great. I think we always knew this season was going to be a bit of a struggle because, I mean, last season we got promoted on a bottom six budget from League Two. And although our budget's gone up in League One, it's not gone up that much. So it's probably still a bottom six budget in League One. So we always knew that it was likely we were going to be right down there. Ideally, the takeover would have been done in August. We could have got a few more reinforcements in. As it is, this January, pretty much all the signings we've been really happy with in terms of what they've added to the squad, and I think there's a kind of feeling of maybe getting ahead of myself in the questions here for you, but even if we went down this summer, I kind of feel like whatever happens, Simpson's going to stay and he's going to get time to actually build something quite decent at the club.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear. Obviously, you see a lot of them on with clubs
Mm.
down this end of the table, really sort of having some struggles with owners. Obviously, we look at Reading with what they're going through. But yeah, you did have something to smile about. Was it November last year? You came down to the Reebok and beat us 3-1. What was your thoughts on that reverse leg?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was one of the hottest days. I mean, it was early October, wasn't it? I think, and it was about 25 degrees. It was sweltering, and look, the following we talk about there is because we've never played a competitive game at the Reebok where fans are allowed. Obviously, we played there in the COVID season, but it was behind closed doors sadly that day. So it was a big thing for our fans. A fairly look when we get these big local Northwest games, we do tend to travel in good numbers because it's we like to show we support our club well, and you guys will be the same this weekend, I'm sure. It was a strange sort of game because you guys looked quite comfortable on the ball. You kept the ball quite well, but I never kind of ever felt like we were that threatened. There was a lot of passing it in front of our back four and not much penetration there. It was a strange old game. And then you guys took the lead, and obviously we missed a penalty, and we get another penalty, and we score. And then second half, I thought we actually were quite lively and we soaked up a lot of the pressure. And there was never any point where I felt Tomasoli was really that heavily tested by you guys. And then obviously at the end, you've got your keeper coming up for the corner with there's still about 3 or 4 minutes left to go, which seemed a bit of a mad one. And then Gibson, I mean, his composure was ridiculous. I mean, we were just, as he was running up pitch, we were screaming, shoot, shoot. And then he like did his little flick. It's like, what are you doing? Then obviously passed it into the back of the net anyway. But it was a brilliant feeling, and like the atmosphere was great. And I tell you, I've been to the Reebok a few times before, so it wasn't a new ground for me. But a lot of our fans came out saying like, of all the new grounds we've been to, it's one of the best ones because the atmosphere stays in and you really feel it in the ground. And even though the home fans were pretty loud as well, and they're all afterwards saying, "No, we deserved it because we did our job basically." We get it wasn't really a smash and grab in that sense. It was more we've stuck to a game plan and it paid off. And yeah, it was. I think a lot of our fans were saying like it's one of those away days. I think next season, if we're in the same league, I mean, I'm sure you guys will be very much hoping that's not the case for positive reasons. That the fans would do again, definitely, because it was a good day out. All considering though the rail strikes and stuff that day was, yeah, it was a pretty decent day.
I remember it very well. Very, very difficult watch. I think you caught us after we were struggling quite a lot with injuries
Mm.
around that point, and we were really clawing our way through games, and it was only a matter of time. I think we were waiting for an international break to come along so we could actually
Yeah.
try and get some of our players back. So, overall with Bolton, then, what are your thoughts on them? Sort of from an outside looking in.
I mean, I think on our pod in pre-season, I'm pretty sure all of us had you guys in the top two. All three of us who did the off-season preview. I might be wrong on that one. I think at least one of us had your top. Might have even been me. I can't remember. But we all looked at your squad and thought, there's plenty of quality in there. There maybe need a little bit more in attack, possibly. I'm not 100%. But, when you looked at defensive options, especially in midfield as well, there was a pack with such quality. And obviously, got a young West Cumbrian in there. And we'll say not that young anymore. Kyle Dempsey, obviously pulling the strings a bit. And obviously, he didn't have the greatest game against us, which was very nice of him to do. And yeah, just when you look at it, there's so much quality in that squad. You guys really should be right up at the top this season, and it's interesting. One of your best players that your fans always rave about is the big lad at the back. Is it Santos, the
Yes,
defender? And I don't think I've ever seen. And he didn't play against us, did he? Actually, from in the first game this season, I don't seem to remember.
no, I think he was
No, he was
injured at
injured.
the time.
Injured. Because every time I've seen him have a game against us, other than that, he's been honking. And I'm always like, I'm sure he is a good player because everybody else says he's great and he has these great games. But every time I see him, he just has a dreadful game against us.
He doesn't
I
do
don't know
very
what it
well
is.
for him, it appears. Every time he's got the spotlight on him, it doesn't quite give him the respect he deserves, unfortunately. But yeah. I think we, as Bolton fans, would like to swiftly move on from that game. I think we've had a couple more similar, some pretty recent as well. Obviously, as a Carlisle fan, you're sitting in the relegation zone. Do
Yeah.
you think you can stay up this season?
I think it's going to be a challenge. I think the more we look at it, and the problem is we haven't been able to get the players in that quickly. That's been the issue. Being able to get these reinforcements signed up sooner would have really helped. We've not been helped by injuries either. We've had a few. Callum Guy being out for the season's really killed us. You had a brilliant game down at your place. In terms of just screening the midfield and covering the back four. He did his ACL against Leighton Orient in the FA Cup, so he's out till I think August this year, something like that. So losing him was a blow. But the ones we brought in, but every single one of them looks really good. We signed Harrison Neal, who was at Barrow last season, and he looked brilliant for Barrow this season. He hasn't played much for Stevenage this season, but we signed him on a permanent from Sheffield United, and he's looked great so far. Luke Armstrong in attack, obviously the lad who was supposed to go to Wrexham, and we've apparently managed to get him for half the price Wrexham were going to pay because Harrogate were that annoyed about the fact that the deal didn't go through and everything, and they had an unhappy player back on their in their ranks. He's been brilliant so far. He's looked like a real find, and he's only got one goal, but his all round game looks great. So long, he looks a real long. I mean, he signed a 3.5 year deal, which is unheard of for us. So it shows that we're thinking long term finally. And Harry Lewis, the goalkeeper we signed from Bradford, which wound up quite a lot of the Bradford fans. That one, he's looked a really good addition so far. Again, he's not kept a clean sheet yet, but he's looked a much better keeper, especially with his feet. He looks really comfortable coming out with the ball. So yeah, I think there's a feeling of if we get maybe one or two more in, we can have a good fist at it, but it's going to be tough. The only way I think is, I was looking at it before, there's a 10-point gap for us right now up to the safety. But then they're really tightly bunched together. There's about 4 points between something like 20th and 11th or something like that, I think, or 12th.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's the nature of the beast in League One. You can very
yeah,
easily get dragged into that weird obscurity, but obviously, as a a new team in the league.
Yeah.
What is the dog doing behind me? Obviously, as a new team in the league, you're more than happy for that, aren't you? Stabilize and sort of
Yeah.
move on then. So obviously, you've listed a few players there. Who would you say is the danger man for you guys? The one who could really cause us some bother when we go up there?
I mean, Armstrong seems the obvious one as a striker. Like he's an actual focal point for us now. We've finally got something, who can be up there and try and bully defenders. And he did, against Barnsley, he was excellent. And we were so unlucky against Barnsley. I mean, they scored with a bit of a scabby, well, not a scabby goal, it was a decent finish, Devante Cole, and then they got a really soft penalty. And we could have been 5-0 up after 20 minutes in that game because we just pressed and pressed and pressed, and then they panicked at the back. Um, so yeah, Armstrong definitely. John Mellish at the back. I always mention him every time I go on anything. He plays sort of the left side of the back three, but he just bombs up and down the pitch for a lot of the game. He can also play in the back four quite comfortably and just sit there though. So he offers a real threat in attack as much as anything as a centre back. He's great. Obviously, Owen Moxon's the one everyone knows about, and
Oh, yeah.
he's a good player, but he's not quite hit the heights this season. He's struggled to make the same impact that he did last time out. But as much of that has been the fact that the rest of the team hasn't really stepped up either, so he's having to do a lot more work probably than he had to last season. So yeah, those ones, and beyond that, it's much of a muchness. They're all solid players. In fact, Paul Huntington actually had highlight as well because he's come back into the squad. He didn't play against you guys in this season because I think he got injured in the Tuesday before celebrating a goal. um, he he's our captain. He's 36 bags of experience, local lad. And having him back against Barnsley, we looked a lot more solid. Yes, we lost the game, but you could see the obvious difference. So I'd fully expect him to be playing in this one. And yeah, he can be a real leader for us at the back.
Interesting. It's you sort of look at things with these sort of rose tinted goggles at your own team, and you don't tend to venture outside it, except for the players who are really hitting the headlines. The full Trotter Chatter crew are making their way up on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. It's my debut in Carlisle as a whole, so it should be a good day. What do you expect from your team then? Do you expect them to sort of come at us, or do you think you'll try and hold out for a sort of a more reserved victory?
Well, we didn't really hold back against Barnsley. Like I said, what we did against Barnsley was, I mean, from memory, you guys do like to play about across the back, don't you? Very much like possession based.
Certainly do, yeah.
We do seem to enjoy those sort of games because we like to press. So what you'll find is we'll probably let you guys have the ball early on, but we'll be constantly pressing at your back line. Armstrong and Butterworth alongside him. Butterworth, God bless him, he could have had a hat trick against Barnsley in the first 12 minutes. He had three brilliant chances. One hit the post. He dragged one wide when a defender passed it to him with an open goal almost, and another one where he nipped in and the keeper made a good save. So he showed really good pressing in the last few games as well. Yeah, I imagine we'll be quite. I'd imagine the big crowd as well will help a bit because you guys obviously bring in 3,000 fans, which is a brilliant effort. And I'd imagine that they do tend to get spurred on by a big crowd, whether it's home or away, back in. So I think it could be quite an interesting game, and especially the fact that we've had 10 days off, obviously because we didn't play at the weekend due to the weather down in Cheltenham. So it's going to be interesting to see how we react to that because I think a lot of our fans were like, oh, would have been nice to have played that game against Cheltenham as a good barometer to see if we could put two good performances together because that's been our biggest problem this season, putting back-to-back good performances. And yeah, we lost against Barnes, but I think most people would say it was a good performance. So how we'll do in this one with the 10-day gap, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange. To be honest, after watching Cheltenham last night, I think it's a bad time to be playing them. They're playing really good stuff, and the sort of performances are not reflected by their league position. So yeah, you might have. And Bolton are very leggy at the moment. We've been playing like Saturday, Tuesday constantly now, and it's pretty much going to be like that for a while. So that could be our Achilles heel for the day. So if I had to push you for a score prediction, what would you say?
Uh, um, we need to get wins, really. If we're going to get ourselves out of trouble, I'm going to have to go for us. We're not going to keep a clean sheet because we haven't, I think we kept one all season, something like that. So I'm going to go with a sneaky 2-1 win with goals from Armstrong. And have we got any ex-Bolton players in our team? I don't know if we have. Sam Lavelle. I'll go with Sam Lavelle to get the one because he's ex-Bolton. I think you don't know if he played a game for you guys, but he definitely was on your books
Yeah, I don't
for a
think you've
bit.
got any like big names anymore.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do mine off the cuff as well now. Um, I will go with a comfortable, not a comfortable, an uncomfortable 1-0. That's the nature of the beast at the moment, but
Mhm.
3 points is 3 points. So yeah, I'll go with that. Anyway, Lee, thank you very much for your
No
time
problem at
again.
all.
I'm looking forward to joining you guys on your show as well. Hopefully see you up there when we make the train journey early doors on Saturday. And yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
Cheers, buddy.